If you've ever touched the warp with your mind, and you... go ahead and hit that like button. Gentlemen, welcome to Conversion Beam. If you're anything like me, you probably had a tough time choosing between the Infiltrators and Incursors when you got your Phobos strike team. Both of these units have their merits, and for the more indecisive among us, it can feel like an impossible decision to make. So for today's conversion, I'm going to be making a Phobos team that doesn't too much resemble either unit, but can be played as whichever one you need for the game you're about to play. We'll begin this conversion by clipping out the bits we need to make the bodies, cleaning the mold lines as best as you can, and then gluing them together as per the instructions, attaching the backpack as well. With that complete, we can move on to the next stage, and that is clearing off the chest. It's very optional, but I like to do it to my marines. It makes them a bit more unique. To achieve this, I hold the marine upside down and cut towards his collar with a sharp knife to remove the bulk of the plastic. After that, I grab a knife that has been worn down after centuries of use, and I scrape back and forth to get rid of all the imperfections and make it a very smooth surface. Happy with that, I go ahead and fill in the power pack slot using the Incursor scanner array. To the side of that, what I was originally going to do, and what you absolutely can do if you just want to stick with the Phobos kit, is clip off one of the antennae from the Infiltrator array and glue it on top of the power pack. It would be a little bit fiddly, but it would get across the look that we're going for. Instead, I opted to use this prodding rod from the Skitarii Ranger kit. After removing the handle, I used every drop of mental fortitude I had left to glue it onto the backpack. I was happy with the look, but I was not satisfied with the connection and how difficult it was to attach. So I had to do a little bit of thinking, and what came to mind was how modern day soldiers, specifically those on long range patrol, would sometimes have packs on the back of their plate carriers, intended not for themselves to access but rather their teammates. So I figured this would be a perfect idea for a long range Phobos team. I would achieve this using a large pouch from the Eradicator kit. Before I could glue it on, I would need to make a flat surface by cutting away the bulge on the backpack. The addition of that large pouch on the back adds much needed depth to the marine, while also providing a much more stable platform to reattach that Skitarii piece. Learning from the difficulties of the first marine, I repeat the process in reverse for the next two marines. Meaning I start with the pouch, then the Skitarii piece, and then the scanner. I believe this backpack successfully captures the essence of both the Infiltrators and Incursors, but I'd like to know what you think. Maybe you have a better idea, let me know down below. For the fourth marine, who will be this squad's second in command, I'm keeping it simple and I'm just using the Infiltrator communication array. Ain't nothing fancy about this guy's power pack. However, for the sergeant, I spiced things up a little bit, starting off with this really cool Oculus from the Phobos upgrade kit. It's a bit different to the Incursor scanner, which separates it from that kit a little bit more, which is good. But where it gets a little bit interesting is when I add this Skitarii power pack. Before gluing it down, I make a flat spot on the Marine's power pack and then cut that cable from the Skitarii's power pack. And I think this makes a really interesting stand-in for the Infiltrator scrambling equipment. And just for a bit of extra detail, I glue a knife to the flat spot made from clipping away the cable. This will just act as a redundancy in case himself or a squad mate needs a replacement blade. And that completes the bodies for this conversion, so now we can move on to the arms and weapons. Both the Infiltrators and the Incursors use a variant of the bolt carbine, so we need to try and build a weapon that can represent both, but not too closely resemble either, if that makes any sense. To begin, we're going to dig into the old faithful Intercessor kit. If you have any left over, clip off the Stalker bolt rifle attachment. If you don't, the normal bolt rifle attachment will work as well. This bit seems pretty straightforward, and maybe you've even tried it before, and if you have, you found out pretty quickly it doesn't fit the way you expect it to. But I found a pretty consistent and accurate solution, so there's no need to stress your handsome head. If you look inside the bolt carbine, there's a horizontal line, and if you clear the plastic directly above it, the magazine should fit perfectly. This part was incredibly hard to film, so I apologize. Basically what's happening is I'm using the walls of the bolt gun to guide the knife down until I reach that line. After doing that for both sides, I cut from the center of the plastic to the end of that cut, making a little triangle. So now it's close to what I want, but it's still not quite flat. Not like... no, I won't say it. Anyways, after scraping it flat with a dull knife, you'll see that the Intercessor attachment fits in perfectly. If drilling barrels is a thing you're into, I'd recommend doing it now before we move on to the next step. And that would be clipping out the Incursor carbine attachment. Once you have it, separate the scope from the rest of the assembly and scrape the surface where it was cut until it's completely flat. I later found out that a nail file works pretty well for that, which is neat, I guess. Anyways, once that piece is clean, glue it onto the side of the bolt gun just above his fingies. At this point I also realized that his forward sight is kind of blocking the scope, so I trimmed that off. With that complete, I attached the gun to the arms and the arms to the body, and then promptly start gluing on shoulder pads and heads, being sure to alternate between Incursor and Infiltrator heads. Alternatively, if you want to separate it even more from the Infiltrators and Incursors, you can use all bare heads, but I'm not very good at painting faces, so I wasn't really willing to do that. I repeated the bolt carbine conversion for every Marine besides the Sergeant, and for my second in command I gave him this really nice communication gauntlet from the Phobos upgrade sprue. And that's how they turned out. Pretty neat, huh? Now the Sergeant. I chose to give him this really sweet knife hand from the Reaver kit. However, getting an angle that made sense meant I had to cut off that little pouch underneath. Happy with that pose, I move on to the other arm, which is a one-handed bolt carbine found on the Phobos upgrade sprue. Next, I glue on the shoulder pad and pick out a head from the Leviathan Phobos Lieutenant. Or should I say Lieutenant? No, it's Lieutenant. That's how it's spelt. Anyways, before gluing it on, I'll need to remove the push to fit tab on his little neck ball. Here I realized I straight up forgot about the gun attachment, so I grabbed this one from the Phobos upgrade kit. It looks like a mix of both carbine variants, which is exactly what I want. If I just had 5 of these, this conversion would be so much easier. Yeah, this Sergeant's pose is very aggressive. I think it fits well with the whole forward deployment aspect. So after attaching a few purity seals, pouches, pistols and knives, this conversion is complete. I think this is a pretty successful conversion, but you let me know what you think. Do you think these can stand in as either Infiltrators or Incursors? Or do you think I should have done something different to make them a bit more convincing? Also, I'm always looking to improve my video quality, so if you have any feedback for me, it would be greatly appreciated. My next conversion video will be on an Apothecarium Rhino, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Thanks!